The fog lay heavy over the Serra da Mantiqueira forest, shrouding the world in mystery and silence. Mariana, a seasoned wildlife photographer, navigated the winding highway with care, her eyes peeled for any movement that might promise a worthy shot. Suddenly, a flash of gold at the edge of the asphalt compelled her to gently tap the brakes. It was a German shepherd puppy, impossibly small, its eyes a mixture of fear and a flicker of hope. It stood nearly invisible in the haze. Mariana's heart lurched. Pulling over, she stepped out of the car, her mind racing with concern for the tiny creature and anger at whoever could have abandoned something so helpless. As she drew closer, she could see the stark outline of the puppy's ribs through its matted fur. It shivered but held its ground. Mariana crouched down, slowly extending a hand, her voice a soft murmur, trying to convey safety and calm. She felt not just a duty to help, but a profound sense of helplessness in the face of such cruelty. Even for someone accustomed to nature's challenges, this encounter had struck a deeper chord. As Mariana remained crouched, her hand outstretched, a sudden rustle in the nearby undergrowth made her heart leap into her throat. The sound of dry leaves seemed amplified in the silence. From the dense thicket, a medium-sized fox emerged, its coat the color of rust, its amber eyes gleaming through the fog. It stopped at the edge of the road, just a few feet from the puppy, surveying the scene with the keen awareness of a creature that survives by reading every threat and opportunity. A chill ran down Mariana's spine. She knew the survival instincts of these foxes were sharp, and she felt certain she was about to witness the timeless standoff between predator and prey. The puppy, though terrified, tried to back away, but its frail body was too weak to obey its fear. Its paws dragged, and any attempt at a bark was little more than a whispered whimper. Mariana was frozen, caught between the urge to protect the puppy and the knowledge that she was witnessing a natural drama, one common in the wild, but painful for any compassionate soul to watch. The tension seemed to fill the very air around them. Mariana held her breath, expecting the worst, as she watched the fox tense its body, ready to pounce. But then, just as it was about to spring, the animal froze. It stood motionless, ears pricked, its body leaning slightly forward, as if listening to a sound only it could perceive. Then, instead of the aggressive leap Mariana feared, the fox approached the puppy slowly, lowering its snout in a gesture of unexpected gentleness. Mariana felt a wave of relief and confusion. The fox showed no teeth, made no threat. The puppy, in turn, did not try to flee, but simply turned its weary gaze to the newcomer. A soft nose-to-nose touch followed, a greeting full of curiosity and somehow of kindness. The puppy responded with a faint nudge, too weak for more. There, on the cold, damp road, a bond was forming that defied everything Mariana knew about the laws of predator and prey. At first glance, it was just a quiet moment, but it was clear something rare was happening, something beyond the known rules of nature. The fox, after that initial contact, did something even more astonishing. It began to gently lick the puppy, as if tending to one of its own. The puppy, whom Mariana had already named Tobias in her mind, slowly relaxed. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of this unexpected affection wash over him. Mariana remained perfectly still, afraid any movement might shatter the delicacy of this rare scene. The fox's tongue worked methodically, cleaning the dirt from Tobias's coat, his paws, his ears, and even around his eyes. It was impossible to miss the care in her actions, as if she knew the little dog needed someone. Tobias, who had barely been able to sit up, let out a soft sigh, finding comfort in her care. At that moment, the sun began to break through the tall mantiqueira trees, painting the scene in the golden hues of dawn. Watching it all, Mariana realized she was witnessing something that would forever change her understanding of the wild. From its delicate build and manner, Mariana could see the fox was a vixen. Her care didn't stop with grooming. With gentle nudges of her snout, she began to encourage Tobias to stand, positioning herself beside him like a guide. The puppy was still weak, his legs trembling, but feeling the warmth and support of his unexpected protector, he summoned a hidden strength. Slowly, hesitantly, he got his paws under him. The vixen waited patiently, offering the support of her own body if he faltered. Mariana watched, her heart in her throat. She fought her own rescuer's instinct. All she wanted was to run over, scoop the puppy into her arms, and rush him to a veterinarian. But at the same time, she felt she had to respect this moment, to let this extraordinary event unfold naturally before her. She stayed put, silently hoping this unlikely connection would hold, and curious to see how deep this newfound bond between two different species could go. This morning had become an experience she would never forget. The vixen walked alongside Tobias, moving slowly so he could keep up. Mariana followed quietly at a distance, documenting everything with her camera, but remaining ever watchful. They disappeared among the trees, where sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a golden path on the forest floor. After a few minutes, they arrived at a burrow, protected by the thick roots of an ancient fig tree. This was the vixen's den, hidden from the world. 3 cubs, looking to be the same age as Tobias, peered out from the den's entrance, their eyes bright with curiosity. At a signal from their mother, Tobias moved forward, still a bit unsure. The cubs immediately ran to him, sniffing and, with a natural joy, began to play, leaping around their new friend with sharp yips. The atmosphere in the den became light, almost welcoming, even for an outside observer. Mariana was amazed at how quickly Tobias was accepted, as if he were already one of them. But she wasn't naive. She knew that life in the Mantiqueira was full of challenges, and larger predators could be lurking, waiting for a sign of easy prey. Mariana stood frozen, her camera resting against her chest, wrestling with a heavy dilemma. She watched Tobias tumble with the fox cubs, looking as if he'd always belonged to this strange family. Part of her yearned to take him home, to guarantee him warm meals, safety, and a soft place to sleep. Yet, it felt wrong to tear him away from this incredible, unexpected cycle that nature had revealed to her. After much internal debate, she decided to stay. Using branches and an old tarp, she built a discreet shelter near the den, from where she could observe and photograph without disturbing them. The mornings passed slowly. Mariana watched the vixen's devotion. She would leave at dawn to hunt, returning with wild fowl, lizards, and even small forest fruits. She shared everything with her cubs and never forgot Tobias, who quickly grew accustomed to a diet far different from what he would have had in a human home. With each new day, the group became more tightly knit. Tobias even began to join in their games, imitating his fox siblings. Mariana documented it all, marveling at their coexistence and the strength of a bond built between the improbable and the natural. Over time, Tobias truly became part of this unconventional pack. Weeks flew by, and he no longer resembled the frail puppy Mariana had first seen. He now raced through the woods with his fox siblings, though his large paws sometimes made him stumble. These clumsy tumbles made Mariana smile to herself in her hidden shelter. Tobias tried to mimic the agility of his den mates, copying their leaps and pounces, not always with the same success. Still, his willingness to learn and adapt to this wild new routine, so different from the comfortable life of a domestic dog, was admirable. Mariana continued her watch, documenting scenes of companionship, hunting lessons, and tender moments of shared naps and grooming. With every click of her camera, she felt she was capturing the story of an inspiring and unlikely relationship. But it wasn't all idyllic. On several mornings, she found fresh tracks around the den, the unmistakable prints of coyotes and other predators that roamed the mountains. The tension grew. At any moment, the small family could be targeted. One cold morning, while the leaves were still damp with dew, Mariana noticed the den under the fig tree was completely silent. There was no sign of the cubs, the vixen, or Tobias. Her heart pounded with a sudden fear. She moved cautiously through the woods, following faint tracks and broken twigs until, not far away, she found the family huddled in a new hiding spot, a crevice between rocks, shielded by ferns. They were all together, but it was clear one of the fox cubs was limping. They had likely been forced to flee their den, and the little one had been injured in the rush. The incident was a stark reminder of how cruel and unpredictable this environment could be. But the threat wasn't only from nature. Soon after, the sound of unfamiliar voices and footsteps echoed through the forest. A group of hikers was approaching. It was Tobias's loud, clumsy bark that drew their attention. Mariana held her breath, praying they wouldn't come closer and discover the small, wild refuge. She knew how much danger the human presence could bring, both to Tobias and to his new family. In their new hiding spot, the mother fox worked even harder to teach Tobias the ways of the wild. With subtle gestures, nose nudges, and silent postures, she showed her young how to camouflage themselves, when to lie still, and how to move without a sound. Her own cubs learned quickly, freezing at the slightest alarm. But Tobias, with his domestic instincts, couldn't control his wagging tail and sometimes barked without thinking. From a distance, Mariana saw the contrast clearly. While the fox cubs mastered the rule of silence, the puppy struggled to fully adapt. This worried not only the vixen, but Mariana as well, who saw the risk increase every time Tobias made a sound. Late that afternoon, heavy clouds began to blanket the sky and a strong wind heralded an approaching storm. The family scurried towards another den, this one better protected beneath an old, fallen log. In that moment, the vixen's dilemma was palpable. She looked at her own cubs, who needed her, and then at Tobias, who was clumsy and frightened by the first rumbles of thunder. In the vixen's eyes, Mariana saw the conflict, the instinct to save her own blood, and the almost human-like responsibility she had taken on for this puppy. For a moment, the vixen stood paralyzed, torn. Seeing the vixen's hesitation, Mariana could no longer remain a passive observer. Her own instinct took over. She moved closer, kneeling near the makeshift shelter under the log. She called to Tobias with a low whistle, a sound he would recognize even through the rising noise of the wind and rain. Tobias's ears perked up. Still frightened, he turned and scrambled towards Mariana, stumbling over wet branches with the familiar awkwardness she knew so well. The vixen moved towards them but showed no aggression. On the contrary, she seemed to understand that it was time for them to go their separate ways. The farewell was simple, yet charged with emotion. The vixen touched her snout to Tobias's, sniffing him gently. Her cubs did the same, as if thanking him for their time together. Tobias received one last, affectionate lick before the vixen looked one final time at Mariana. Then, she turned and led her own young into the dark forest, disappearing into the trees, swallowed by the storm's growing shadows. Tobias stood for a moment, whimpering softly. Mariana knelt and wrapped her arms around him, feeling the wet, tired puppy tremble. And there they remained, Mariana holding him close, both of them breathing in the rain-soaked air, absorbing the weight of the moment and of the goodbye. In the days that followed the storm, Mariana stayed home with Tobias, trying everything she could think of to lift his spirits. She made him a warm bed, offered him pieces of cooked chicken, and even left the radio on low to give him some sense of company. But nothing seemed to ease his sorrow. Tobias wouldn't even look at his food, spending his hours by the door, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the treetops met the sky. Almost every evening, he would let out a soft, heart-wrenching howl. Mariana felt his pain as if it were her own. As much as she had acted out of love, saving the pup from an uncertain fate with the foxes, she now felt the weight of having separated two different worlds, both equally real to him. She tried to distract him with toys and long walks, but Tobias remained listless, his gaze always returning to the forest. After nearly a week of this painful routine, Mariana realized the best thing she could do was listen to what Tobias's heart was asking for. She decided to get in the car and drive slowly to the spot in the woods where it all began. She took Tobias with her, hoping that this reunion, even if only through glances or scents, might bring some peace to them both. As soon as they reached the stretch of forest where it all started, Mariana opened the car door. Tobias leaped out instantly, his nose pressed to the ground as he sniffed every inch of damp earth and fallen leaves. It was clear he was searching for a sign of his fox family. He moved quickly between branches and rocks, sniffing anxiously until he stopped short. The hair on his back stood on end, and he looked at Mariana with frightened eyes. Nearby, fresh tracks in the soil revealed the paw prints of 3 coyotes, their claws digging deep into the earth. A chill ran down Mariana's spine. The woods were silent, the kind of silence that only falls when danger is lurking nearby. And then, breaking that silence, came the sounds of a struggle. Further ahead, muffled barks, intense snarls, and the rustling of leaves. Mariana immediately recognized the distinctive growl of the mother fox, along with the yelps and sharper barks of her cubs. They were trying to defend themselves, cornered by 3 coyotes right in the middle of a nearby marsh. Mariana's heart raced. The risk was real and immediate, and she knew she had to act fast to help the small family, even without knowing exactly what she could do. It all happened in a blur. Realizing the danger, Tobias shot toward the coyotes with an energy that surprised even Mariana. Though only a pup, he placed himself between the predators and the fox family, barking, growling, and lunging without a hint of fear. The coyotes, caught off guard, split up. 2 tried to circle the mother fox, while the third, the largest, advanced aggressively on Tobias. In that instant, the mother fox saw her chance. With an agile leap, she grabbed 2 of her cubs by the scruff of their necks and ran into the dense vegetation, disappearing behind a fallen log. But the smallest cub, the one that had been limping days before, was left behind near the coyotes. Tobias, despite his smaller size, threw himself at the largest coyote and bit its muzzle with all his might, causing a few seconds of confusion. The scene snapped Mariana out of her hiding place. She was no longer thinking, only acting. She grabbed the largest stones she could find and began throwing them at the coyotes, all while yelling and stomping her feet, to make herself seem bigger. The shouting and the stones startled the animals. After a few seconds, they retreated, snarling, but finally giving in to the pressure. Tobias, despite a few scratches and a slight limp, staggered back to where the mother fox and her cubs were hidden. The scene that followed was deeply moving. The vixen, showing no fear, approached him and began to lick his wounds, thanking him in the only way an animal knows how. The little cubs, full of life, circled around him, as if trying to both protect and honor their new friend. Mariana watched from a distance, feeling a strange warmth in her chest, a mix of pride and sorrow. But in that moment, it was clear that something in the vixen's gaze had changed. Slowly, she began to back away, and with gentle nudges of her snout, she started to push Tobias softly in Mariana's direction. It was as if she were saying, "Your part here is done." Tobias resisted at first, looking back at the woods, but he gradually understood the message. Mariana realized it was no longer just her decision to make. Tobias, the vixen, and even the cubs were all part of this choice, each in their own way. The weight of the dilemma grew heavier. Where, after all, was his true home? And what did family mean, here in this lost corner of the Minas Gerais mountains? The next day, Mariana took Tobias to the town veterinarian, Dr. Henrique, who knew the local animals well. They entered the clinic together, Tobias still a bit wary, but confident by his owner's side. The doctor treated his wounds with a calm hand, cleaning the scratches and tending to the injuries from the fight with the coyotes. He also suggested running some tests to better understand Tobias's health, since the dog had always seemed a little different, wilder than the other dogs in the village. 2 days later, Mariana returned for the results. As she walked in, Dr. Henrique gave her a curious smile and explained that the genetic tests revealed something unexpected. Tobias had wolf ancestry in his blood. This rare mix could explain so much: his ability to survive in the forest, his courage against the coyotes, and the instinctive bond between him and the mother fox. But this news also brought a new set of worries. Mariana found herself wondering even more. Where did Tobias truly belong? Should he live free in the wild, guided by his instincts? Or did he have a place beside her, learning to live among people? The decision, which was already difficult, now seemed nearly impossible. Time passed, but Mariana's mind was filled with doubts about Tobias's future. On a cloudy morning, as she was getting ready for the day, she heard an unusual noise from the backyard. Peeking through the window, she saw the mother fox standing near the fence, carefully carrying one of her cubs. The little one looked unwell, with an injured paw and a very weak body. The vixen's eyes held both desperation and hope, as if she were trusting Mariana to help her once more. Mariana didn't hesitate. She grabbed a towel, went to the gate, and approached slowly. The vixen didn't back away, only watched with pleading eyes. Mariana brought the small cub inside and did everything she could. She cleaned the wound, made a makeshift bandage, and left the little one resting in a warm corner of the laundry room. Tobias stayed by its side the entire time, as if he understood the gravity of the situation. In the following days, the mother fox made a makeshift den under the acerola tree in the yard. Mariana was amazed. It was as if two very different families were suddenly sharing the same space, each respecting the other's ways, living in harmony while the cub recovered, surrounded by care and acceptance. Soon, daily life in Mariana's backyard became something extraordinary. The fox cubs began to recover, and instead of fleeing into the woods, they started to imitate Tobias in everything. They learned to eat near people, play with old balls, and even defend themselves by barking at strangers who appeared at the gate. It was clear they were no ordinary cubs. They were already smarter than many thought possible for their kind, even managing to lift wooden gates and understand some of the gestures and sounds Mariana used to call them. News of these unusual encounters began to spread through São João del Rei and the surrounding areas. One afternoon, while texting on her phone, Mariana discovered that researchers from the Federal University of Minas Gerais had heard about the intelligent cubs and wanted to know more. This brought a swell of pride, but also a spike of concern. It wasn't long before neighbors started showing up, trying to get a closer look at the animals. And one rainy night, a stranger even tried to jump the wall. Mariana became vigilant. She knew their home was exposed, and that not everyone came with innocent curiosity. Thinking of the well-being and safety of Tobias, the cubs, and the mother fox, Mariana sought help from the Serra do Reserve, a respected organization that specialized in integrating wild animals with the local environment, protecting them from threats, and ensuring they had a safe space. The team from the Serra do Reserve arrived full of ideas. After a long conversation with Mariana, they decided to build a special enclosure right on the reserve's grounds. It was a fenced-in area with native trees, artificial dens, and even an open space for running and playing. The goal was to ensure not only their safety, but also to create an environment where the foxes could be studied up close without losing their freedom. Mariana was involved in every step, constantly talking with the biologists and caretakers to ensure Tobias could be near his wild friends. The transition wasn't simple, especially for the mother fox. Despite the trust she had built with Mariana, she remained on high alert, always ready to grab her cubs and disappear at the slightest sign of danger. The first few days were filled with small escapes, but the well-planned space and the calm atmosphere helped the vixen feel more secure, especially with Tobias always nearby, serving as a bridge between humans and animals. Tobias, now recovered and more confident, quickly stood out. He helped the cubs explore the new space and, with his calm demeanor, also won over Chico, the reserve's old guard dog. Chico, known for being mistrustful, soon accepted Tobias on his morning patrols, showing that even the most unlikely bonds could flourish there. Over the months, the reserve became a model of how different animals could learn to live together in peace and trust. The daily routine was a mix of the fox cubs taking walks with Tobias, and even Chico, who no longer bared his teeth as he once did. People from the surrounding community began to visit Serra do to see this rare coexistence firsthand. School children from the region, researchers from afar, and curious onlookers all came to understand how it was possible. It wasn't long before other reserves and animal protection projects across Brazil started to copy the idea, attempting the same kind of interspecies connection that no one had believed would work. Mariana's life changed completely. The university staff began to ask her to give lectures and interviews about animal rehabilitation and care, and she loved sharing the small joys and challenges of her daily life with the animals. But there was a greater purpose to it all. Tobias and the mother fox continued to show, with every gesture of friendship and care, that true bonds transcend any difference in origin or species. They became a symbol of hope in difficult times, inspiring people from all walks of life to see the beauty in coexistence and the strength in the simple act of choosing to protect one another.